Hey guys, just had a few issues with one of my Dynam retracts. Same sort of issue I've had with a lot of quite basic plastic cased retracts. I figured out earlier the issue, which I feel might be the major issue amongst a lot of the other makes of retracts. Now, what I've been finding, what's been happening, you go out to the field with the model, do your pre-flight checks, retract the gear, and drop the gear, and the gear doesn't want to come back down, or only one gear will come back down, and no matter what you do, it just won't work. It's very, very frustrating because you've got your model on the field and you want to fly it and you can't, because obviously you can't land it without any wheels, or for that matter you might not be able to take it off without any wheels. So anyway, I'll show my findings. It's just going to be a quick tutorial showing how to deal with this problem very, very easily. I'm going to try and explain it so that basically anyone with no building experience or no technical experience with a model with this issue, that they can deal with it themselves. So just for the benefit of this tutorial, I have got a metal trunnioned retract here. They're all pretty much the same sort of design, with the 15 to 25 size retracts. Now, the first thing to do to correct this problem, now generally if you've retracted the gear and one hasn't come back up, you'll end up with it looking like this, with the gear leg sticking out here. So what you want to do is, basically, this will be in the model. There'll be 4 screws, which I recommend using a decent sized screwdriver to get them out, so you don't round them off. And then you'll be able to remove the retract from the wing. You can do this, if you're sort of clever enough, you can do this underneath the model, so you haven't got to pull all the wiring out of the model. So release the retract from the model, take these 4 screws out, and then what we're faced with is 4 screws here. 4 little Phillips screws which connect the top plate to the model and to the retract. So I've already got 2 here that are removed. So all we're going to do is just spin them out. Like I say, do it for all 4 of them, and then what you'll be able to do, you'll be able to remove the top plate. Now the next thing to do, your retract unit's still sealed. On one side, and only on one side, you'll have 4 screws. What I'm going to do is wind these out. I could have put this through an editor and sped it up a little bit, but I thought I'd do it all in real time, and then anyone else with these issues can follow along and hopefully should solve your issue. So I know how frustrating this is. It's quite a common issue nowadays with a lot of the cheaper foamies. I wouldn't say cheap, but cheaper brands. Right. I'm going to remove all 4 of these screws. Anyone that doesn't want to watch screws being undone, fast forward. Anyway, we're there. Right, now then, now we've got all of the screws out, what we're going to do is we're going to carefully, it's normally best if you put a dish or something, or work on a flat surface, or anything that drops out you can find, don't do it over a carpet. We're just going to wiggle the retract apart, the unit apart. We've got one empty case, one case with all of the gubbins in it. Now this is what your retract will look like if you've got it stuck down. the trunnion will be in the downward position. Now, I'm not sure the names of all these parts, but I'll call them what I think's sensible so people understand. Now, this is like a ram. And you've got a worm drive that runs along through the ram, which is threaded. And you've got your motor system here and gearbox, and there's a bearing here. The bearing sits in a little housing to hold it tight. Now, this ram pushes against a micro switch inside the system here, which you probably can't see there. So I have an example already out. That is what the little circuit board will look like. Let's just line them up. That is your little circuit board that sits inside there with your micro switches. Now, from what I believe, these little micro switches, when the ram moves along the worm drive as the motor's turning, so this will all be connected to the gearbox, and when you activate the retract, this motor will run and it will wind the worm drive, which in turn will wind this ram backwards and forwards. Therefore, the trunnion being on its pivot here will turn the trunnion like that, because the ram's going to pull the guides. And then what happens is, as the ram gets to the end here, where you've got your micro switch which is closest to the gearbox, which will be, I'll get it to focus in, will be this little switch here. Now, what I found is happening, the ram will come along here and it will click the switch in. I don't know if you can hear that. Moves ever such a tiny amount. So your retract has basically, to start with, this is the downward position, so your gear will be down when it is against this micro switch which is closest to the motor, so that will be compressed. And then as you retract your gear on your pre-flight checks, as you retract your gear, your ram's going to move and press against this switch, which will cut off the motor, and therefore your operation is complete and the retract should be locked down. Now, when you flick your switch to land, what's going to happen is nothing. You'll get a little buzz from the motor and then nothing will happen. What's actually happened is this switch, this end, after the ram has moved away from it to retract, this switch is stuck in, so it won't come out. This is a working switch, so it's quite hard to show you the example. But basically, yeah, that switch will be stuck in. Now, what I found's happening, where all the gearbox here is sitting closest to this switch here, what's happening, your retract, when you normally store the model, I know, well, I store the model with the gear down generally, so this ram, when the gear is down, will be pushed against this switch over time. Now, this grease inside the gearbox seems to seep, or it will travel along the worm drive and it will end up clogging up this switch. Where you've got that sitting with the gear in the down position and that switch is compressed, it almost acts like, you know, it congeals and acts like a bond. So when the switch is in, it will stay in. Now, I hope I'm making sense here. I'm probably being too complicated about it. But basically, yeah, that switch will be stuck in. So just get something, test that switch, make sure it goes in there. If it doesn't, that's your issue, because the retract thinks it's already down. So what I've been using is just a simple can of this. I'm not saying this is what you should use. This is just what I've used, which I found's worked. It's just a CA activator, and when you spray it, you just get a clear spray out of it, which obviously eats any grease and things away, and it allows a glue to bond to its surface. Now, where it eats grease away, and it's only a very, very minute gap between the actual switch and the housing, you need something very thin to get in there. Now I've been using this, and just give that a quick blast, give it a minute, and it'll normally eat any grease away that is inside the switch, and it will allow the switch to release. And then, like I say again, just with a little screwdriver or something, just keep working the switch till it moves freely in and out. Put your Retract back together. Making sure that these wires sit inside a pre-cut channel, as not to crush your wires, because you don't want to pinch your wires, because that will create you more problems. Everything has to go in nice and lined up. So it's all back together. Now all you want to do is, using your original screws, is just go straight back into the holes. Don't over tighten them because you don't want to crack the casings. And then replace your top plate by putting the screws back down. Now this top plate and the Retract can now be mounted back into the wing. Screw back into the wing, and it'll all work. Now I suggest, whilst you're doing this, if you remove the Retract from the wire lead, which will be connected to both of your Retracts, and plug this directly in to your receiver, paying good attention to your signal and your negative ends. The receiver should normally give you an orientation and tell you what way it goes. Plug it directly in, and then you know that basically you've outwritten any issues that might be in this. So you just plug it directly into that, and then when you operate the gear, it all should work fine. Give it a go, chaps. If your Retract's dead, it's worth a try. I've basically had the issue with one of my models this afternoon. I've dug into it. I fixed the issue. The Retract works every time. I also have got another 2 Retracts of the same make, and also this one. Now this one was a dead Retract. I applied the same technique to this Retract as what I did with the actual one that I was destined to fix, and this one now comes alive. I also tried it on another twist and turn Retract which I've got, which again didn't want to come down. Same thing, clean up the micro switch and work it in and out, put it all back together, and away you go. Now I've tried doing this in real time, just give you an idea of how long this takes, and it's worth a try to get your Retracts working again, save you waiting a week for a new set to turn up. That seems to be what the issue is, or has been, with the majority of the dead ones that I've tried. Clean the switch up, work it in and out, put it all back together, and it works. So as you can see, just from this 15-minute video, it's going to take you 15-20 minutes just to give it a try. It's worth a try, guys. Have a go. Hopefully this has helped. Didn't really need to make the video, but I just thought that, being that this happened, well, this was the issue on all of these Retracts, I thought it may affect a lot of other people's, and hopefully if it's helped get you back in the air, well, the video's done its job. Anyway, thanks for watching, chaps.